All right, I've cut this lesson to the bare minimum so that you know what's going to be on the test, okay? Originally, there was a bunch of these fancy tests where you take logs of the data and compare them, and you try to find a line and blah, blah, linearize the data and all this stuff. We're just going to look at the correlation coefficients today, and basically I'm going to tell you on the test which regression to use. The idea, these are the choices you need to be able to pick between. Everybody paying attention, because there's a question on the test that says, this will work better if I turn my slide on. Okay, the question on the test will give you a picture. It might look like this. If it looked like that, what kind of regression would you suggest we use? Good call. Linear would be a good choice for that one, right? Okay. What if the data looked like this? Which regression would we use? Okay. What if the data looked like this? Which regression would we use? Okay. Now, we did power regression as well, but I will not put it on the test, and the reason for that is power regression generally looks like this. And what is that going to confuse you with? Exponential growth, okay? They're hard to tell apart. A power regression always goes through the origin, but I will not put this as a choice on the test because if it looks like this shape, I want you to pick exponential growth, okay? That's what was in this chapter. The other one that you might see on the test that is not on the screen right now is logistic. Remember the bear question we did yesterday? Okay. It said you introduce something in, it slowly grows, then it grows more rapidly, but eventually you've used all the resources so it levels off. Okay. This shape logistic will also be on the test, possibly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a picture and 4 choices out of these 6 that are circled in red. What? Yeah, not that one. Okay. It's exponential growth, logarithmic, logistic, linear, quadratic, or cubic. Now, which are the 2 you need to be really careful of that look a lot the same? The words look very similar, and so do the shapes. These 2 right here. Do you see this? Logarithmic and logistic. The words are similar, so read carefully, but the shapes are kind of similar. How would you tell the difference, maybe? Yeah, the main difference is that this one is going to flatten off. If it has a limit, it just gets flat, then it's logistic. This is a continuing to grow thing, okay? This is continuing to grow. All right, so that's one thing that's on the test. The other thing that's on the test is where you have to actually plot some data, draw the scatter plot, find the regression, and make a prediction, like we've done with all these over the past, okay? I am going to tell you which one to use, though. So for this question, and you don't even have to type these in to save us some time, okay? Deal? What would you have typed into list 1? Be careful, read the question to yourself. Yes, since 1950, so this would have been 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, and then these numbers for the GDP in list 2. Now, GDP is gross domestic product, and I know next to nothing about it. If you take econ, you'll learn about it. I don't know. All right. You would turn the scatter plot on and draw me a little sketch. That's what we asked on the test. Do you remember how to turn your scatter plot on? Second, y equals, okay? And you got to remember to do a zoom 9 or set up an appropriate window by hand, or you're not going to see it. And we're going to practice this in a second, but this one I did for you. What do you think when you see this? Which shape would you suggest? Do you remember the choices? Which one do you think this would be?
Exponential growth.
Exponential growth, okay? Under the regression choices, that's going to be EXPREG. So on the calculator, you would go stat right arrow. Now I can't do it because we didn't put the list in, but I just want to show you. If you go down, oh, there it was in that screen somewhere, wasn't it? I gotta start over now. It's like number 0, EXPREG. By the way, we're going to get to this in a second, but this one that says LNREG is actually logarithmic. So on the regressions, it doesn't look so much like logistic, like the word logistic. It's called LN. If you keep going down, there's power, and then there is logistic. Logistic is spelled out. Okay? We'll talk more about those in a second. But then I actually did the regression and got this. How do we write this answer? Can anybody see this at all? Is it on your sheet in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to skip this question about the regression growth rate for just a second. How do we write that regression equation, which is on another line here? It's on this slide. It says y equals, and we write, I just need to point out to you that the power regression was y equals a times x to the b, kind of similar. Okay, this one says what though? Y equals a times b to the x. Now, I had somebody write this down earlier. They wrote a times b to the x. Is that the same thing? This would mean you would do the exponent power first and then multiply by a, which is what they're implying here. There's no parenthesis, okay? So don't get confused. Filling this in quickly, 1812 times 1.035 to the x. All right, now I'm going to back up and talk about this question. What is the growth rate? Guys, what is the exponential formula we have used for exponential growth on your pink sheets? Was the original times what?
1 plus the rate times.
Good job. Okay, so look at what you just wrote down. Can you tell me what the growth rate is? We wrote down 1812 times 1.035 to the t. So this is 1 plus what rate? Yeah. The growth rate is 0.035 or 3.5%. Does everybody see that? No? It's from in here. And I'm not going to ask that on the test. But this was growing by 3.5%. So then when I plotted it, it fit perfectly through every dot. Not necessarily perfect, but it hit every dot, okay? Then it says estimate the GDP in the year 2020. How far is 2020 from 1950? 70 years. So we need to put a 70 in here. That's going to be a really big number. 1812 times 1.035 to the 70. Okay, I don't know about you, but I'm not too sure this is going to continue to grow that fast. If you look at these numbers, I don't know, it was going up pretty good, but if the year 2000 was almost 10,000, and now we're saying by 2020 it would be up twice that, to 20,000 something. I don't know. I don't know anything about it, so I'm just going to go with it. All right, the next slide here that I have for you says exponential and logarithmic growth is unrestricted it will continue to grow, okay? We talked about that. Logarithmic grows much slower. Exponential could grow slow if it had a small enough growth rate, all right? But in many situations, there is a limit to how something can grow. Like a population can be limited by space, food, and water. Remember, we talked about this yesterday. The bears, or did I talk about a fish, throwing some fish in the pond and seeing how many fish, okay? This is going to be logistic growth because it's going to level out. They have the formula, and this is exactly how it is on your calculator. It's y equals c over 1 plus a e to the negative b x or t. It says a, b, and c are positive constants, and c is the limit to the growth. This top number, remember I talked about that yesterday when we had an example. The top number is approaching the limit. That's the limit it will approach. They even define it down here. I like this. They call it the carrying capacity. So it's the capacity that that environment will support, the limit. I'm not going to ask you that vocabulary, but it's there. All right. So we are going to actually type this one in, please. Make a scatter plot, and then we're going to find the logistic model. So we're going to do the regression for the logistic. All right, so we start by doing what? Okay, and we get there by stat enter. Make sure you have list 1 and list 2. And type them in 0 through 7. And then 3 to 9.3, here's a variety of numbers. You do have to do one of these on Tuesday's tests. It isn't necessarily logistic, but in the question, I specify which regression to use. You don't have to try to pick. I would store it, yes, but you don't have to. Did everybody turn their stat plot on and look at it? So we go second y equals. If I could do that successfully. There we go. And turn plot 1 on and make sure it says list 1 and list 2. I usually go to y equals. Make sure I don't have any garbage typed in there for an equation that's going to run through the middle of my picture. And then what? Cannot forget to do, because you won't see anything until you do probably, zoom 9. All right. This is a little iffy. I'm very glad they told us what regression they wanted, because it's not totally clear to me that this is flattening out. There's not very many data points at the end here, but they said it must be. They picked logistic, okay? And I will on the test tell you which one to do. So what are we going to do next? I'm going to do a rough sketch really quick. And then stat, right arrow, they picked logistic. It's down there somewhere, and it literally says logistic. Find it? It's way down at B. Mine doesn't scroll very fast. Sorry, guys. Now, if you want to store it, your calculator will say store regression probably, and you want to put Y1 there. If you have the older calculator like I'm using in this mode right here, you're going to do L1, comma, L2, comma, vars key, area to the right, enter, enter so that it's in Y1. Nice. What did I do? Thanks. Did my Y1 go away now? What did I do? Yours take a long time? Mine took a while to make up its mind, but eventually I have c over 1 plus a e to the negative bx. And I have 3 numbers. No one will get an R value. Logistic does not generate a regression correlation coefficient. Okay? Logistic does not generate a correlation coefficient. Ever. That's a good question. Must have to do with how it generates it. It's not possible for it to generate. I'm thinking because it has a limit. I don't know. I don't know how it generates them. It is. All right. So what numbers did we get on that screen? Can someone help me so we can write it down here? Y equals the top C. Be careful. When I started to write this earlier, I put A on the top, and it says clearly C. So it's 10.001 or something. I'm going to go with 10. In the denominator, it's 1 plus A, which is e to the negative b, which is b is 5.01? I thought it was a decimal. That's my bad. All right. Now, I stored mine, so I should be able to look at the graph just to see how it's fitting. Quite beautiful. All right, then how can I can either type it back in, which is kind of a pain in the neck, or if you stored it, do you remember how you can plug it in? You can turn your table on to Ask Auto, and then go second graph, and we're supposed to put in what? 20? Anybody awake? What are we supposed to type in for the predicted? 20. And by 20, it's basically at the max. I got 20 or 10.001. Did you? Okay. So the max. It's maxed out by 20. What were we talking about in this question? Did anybody actually read the question? I did not read it to you. Mice in a certain habitat. And it didn't tell us what this was, years, months, whatever, okay? But after 10 or 20 whatevers, months or something, it's reached the maximum of 10 that this little habitat will support. So why is the logistic model good here? Yes, because it straightens out, but it also, to me, it's because it's talking about habitat of something, right? So it's a population is gonna max out in a certain habitat. So I wrote number of mice will max for this habitat. Okay. Whatever you want to write, I'm good. It must be, maybe it's a, yeah, my little cage or my my garage. I usually get mice in my garage this time of year because they're trying to get in and out of the cold.
There's mice in the pantry.
I haven't had mice in this room recently that I know of, but yeah, one year years ago I opened opened the drawer to pull out candy, and there was like mouse poop in the candy. I'm like, oh yeah, I won't be feeding this candy to anybody. Gross. Okay. Guys, when you use a calculator, generally gives you the regression equation, okay? So they put some data on the screen here and they looked at all these regressions. Okay, this one doesn't give one. We just talked about that. Which one had the strongest correlation coefficient?
That one right there.
Exponential. How do we make a choice if this one doesn't give one? We can't really. If we knew something about the data, like what it was, is it number of whatevers, this one continues to grow. This one, we have no indication that this is leveling off, right? So I probably would have stuck with this one, but it does depend on what the data numbers were about. If they gave us a word, some kind of description of the data. All right, we're going to move on. Going to cross out a whole bunch of stuff. We are going to go to the very bottom of 13b, and this question actually goes on to 14a, okay? Just so you're not confused where I move on to in just a second. It's at the bottom of 13b, and then the top of 14a. All right, I want you to type this one in. Can you do this one quick? It's the last one I'm going to ask you to type in, then I'm going to let you go work on the homework. This is actually, actually I think I wasn't going to have you type this one in. That's all right. Go ahead and type it in. I'm going to make you do one more though. If you type this one in and look at the scatter plot, go to your stat, enter, and see if they have the same number of items. That's generally why you get that dim mismatch.
No, I accidentally just deleted something, but I don't know where I was.
Do you need me to read you the numbers, or?
No, it's not really my calculator in general. Like I hit graph and it says invalid dimension.
That's generally because your two lists don't have the same number.
There's nothing in my list.
Then in your window settings, you probably deleted a number. Like you can't have, just do go to. Like your max has to be more than your min, and if you try putting numbers that are backwards, you'll get that message.
Well, my max and my mins are fine. I think I did it to my table. That's what I did. I did it to my table. I'm missing my y in my table.
That means you don't have an equation in for y equals.
No, I accidentally went up and deleted it.
No, it doesn't matter.
How do I put it back?
If you put an equation in, it will go there. But you're getting that message because you have a stat plot turned on. All right, back to this question, guys. Did you get this shape when you did a Zoom 9? Okay. Because it is appearing to continue to grow slowly, what are we going to use? Exponential would be if it were growing this way, or exponential decay would be if it were going this way. Okay? This is logarithmic, which is the ln regression on your calculator. So can you try that and find that one? And now I'm going to flip over to the top of 14a. It says calculate the logarithmic regression, which is the choice that says LNREG. This one gives you an error if you have a 0 in your list 1. Anybody think about why that would be? Right. Okay. Did you get something? I wrote this down here. Is this about what you're getting? 217? No? What does it say? Y equals A plus B ln of x. So did you get 614-ish plus 217-ish ln of x, okay? And then it says on day 9, so if you stored it, you can go ahead and use your table to find 9, and then I want to talk about what this actually meant. Did anybody put the 9 in? Yeah, I think if I use my rounded one, I get like 1090. You got 1092. Is that what you said you got? Somewhere in there? Okay. I want to go back and talk about this question. What you actually typed in, it said, the spread of a given computer virus is measured over time. Okay? So day 2, there were 765 computers infected. But as time went by, the number infected levels off. Okay? Eventually. Now, we estimated 9 days. Did our number fit in between here? 9 days, we got a number like 1090, 1092. Does that fit in our table? Okay, so it was a good predictor, fit within the data. All right. That one was logarithmic slow growth. All right, one more, last one, I promise. The brightness of a point of light is measured at different distances. So we turned on a light and we stood further and further away, and it was dimmer and dimmer. Shocking, right? Okay, put these in. All right, I kind of cheated. I had them put in list 3 and list 4, but now I transferred them to list 1 and list 2. Everybody got them in? What do we do next? I always have to go to y equals and clear out the equation I stored. But then I want to do, you have to do every single time. Zoom 9 to see a new window. This is what I got. Okay, so for my scatter plot, okay, this shape is not on the test, but this is exponential what? Because it's going down. Exponential decay. So if you were doing this by hand, what would the equation look like if it's decay, guys? 1 minus some rate. So what kind of a number are we going to get in here when we do this? Not a negative, because it's going to do the 1 minus the rate. Something less than 1, yes? Okay, so let's try it. Stat, right arrow. It is exponential. Even though it's going down, it's going to just be exponential decay. And again, this could be the one on the test, but I would tell you, do an exponential regression. It's not a trick question. Somebody will do it wrong, but I'm telling you, use whatever it says. Exponential. Okay. I'm going to store mine. Maybe, if I can get it right this time. All right. Does this make sense? I got 33.15.956 to the x. Why does that make sense? What did we just talk about? It is decay because this is less than 1. Okay? If I look at the graph, it's kind of funny because it fits well except for that first dot. All right, let's use, I'm going to use the table. What are we supposed to make a prediction for, guys? 100 meters away. I got 0.38. Does that make sense if you're standing 100 meters away that you're going to get very little light out of this light source? So 0.38. What was the label? Please remember to label your answers. Candelas, which is equivalent to light from one candle. All right. I forgot to write it down on this blank. Did you get it from this slide, though? 33.15. You got that number written down somewhere? That equation? Everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. I'll copy it and put it in the right blank so I feel better, okay? Now you got it? All right, guys, this is the last slide. This is what I need you to know. I am eliminating, so you're listening? On 14B, all you have to do all of 14B except 1B, cross off part 1B because it says run these tests and I didn't teach you how to do that. 2B, cross that off. All right, now you're going to like this. Go to 15A, cross off everything. You don't have to do any of 15A. And 15B, the only problem I want you to do is the very last one, number 9. Yep. So originally my idea was to cross off a couple on 15B, but instead I've decided to cross off all of 15A and part of 15B, okay? All right, so get started on that right now.